The federal government just cut $186 billion from food assistance. Most people heard that and moved on. They should not have, because buried inside that cut is one of the most specific leading indicators for real estate distress that any investor or homeowner could ask for. Someone's financial stress is always someone else's opportunity. The question is knowing where to look before the headline runs. This video shows you exactly where to look. Every $1 of SNAP spent generates $1.80 in local economic activity. That is not an opinion. That is USDA economic modeling used by every serious economist who studies food policy. When you cut $186 billion from SNAP over 10 years, you are not cutting a welfare check. You are removing $330 billion of economic activity from specific zip codes on a documented schedule. Before we go deeper, subscribe right now and drop a comment. Tell us what you're seeing in your market. We read every comment and it shapes what we research next. Share this with anyone watching real estate. Here is the mechanism that runs from a federal budget cut to your property tax bill. States are now required to pay 25% of SNAP administrative costs starting October 2026. Once fully phased in, states collectively owe $15 billion annually, costs that were previously federal. 40 states saw tax revenues fall in fiscal year 2024. They are absorbing a $15 billion new obligation with a shrinking tax base. That gap gets balanced somewhere. Property taxes, school budgets, road maintenance. The middle-class homeowner who never touched SNAP is now funding the cost shift. State income tax revenues are projected to fall $3.7 billion in 2026 alone, just from reduced economic activity caused by the cuts. That is your state's budget getting hit before the cost shift even fully kicks in. Stop. You are now in this story, whether you know it or not. Now here is where it gets specific for real estate investors. This is the part worth writing down. 27,000 retailers nationwide are at serious financial risk from these cuts. Most are small independent grocery stores. Many are the only food retail option in their zip code. Kay Voss owns Stratton Country Market in Stratton, Nebraska. Population 340. 40% of her sales are SNAP transactions. She told reporters the store likely will not survive the cuts. When that store closes, it does not close just for SNAP recipients. It closes for every household in Stratton. The middle-class family that never touched a benefit now drives 45 minutes to buy groceries. And when the only grocery store in a zip code closes, property values in that zip code fall. That is what happens to any community when basic retail infrastructure disappears. 77% of the counties with the highest SNAP participation and most limited food retail access are rural. These are the markets to watch. Within 6 months of benefit cuts taking effect, small grocers are projected to see sales decline by as much as 6.7%. The National Grocers Association said stores with 50% SNAP sales cannot absorb a 20% cut. When those stores close, the food desert expands. A food desert expanding is a direct real estate event. It suppresses home values and rental demand in the surrounding area, measurably. Now here is the job loss chain that runs from federal cut to foreclosure opportunity. Commonwealth Fund projects 1.03 million jobs lost nationwide from combined SNAP and Medicaid cuts. 143,000 of those are in food-related industries: grocery, agriculture, food processing, transportation. These are not poverty jobs. These are the truck driver delivering to that rural store, the warehouse worker at the regional distribution center, the farmer whose product moves through the SNAP supply chain. Farmers stand to lose $24 billion over the next decade as household food purchases decline. State and local governments lose $8.8 billion in tax revenues funding schools, roads, and public safety. Here is the foreclosure chain. Job losses in specific geographic clusters lead to income stress. Income stress leads to missed payments. Missed payments lead to foreclosures. Foreclosures create forced sellers. Forced sellers create buying opportunities, but only for investors who saw it coming. The states hit hardest are identifiable right now. New Mexico, Louisiana, and Kentucky have SNAP and Medicaid together, making up over 6% of state GDP. These are economies where the federal program is load-bearing infrastructure. If you are not already tracking SNAP participation rates by zip code alongside grocery store density and foreclosure filing data, start today. The data is public, the timeline is known. The opportunity window is 12 to 24 months. The investor who maps which counties have the highest SNAP participation, cross-references which grocery stores are financially at risk, and watches foreclosure data in those areas, that investor is positioned before the headline runs. Everyone else finds out when the auction listing goes up. Now here is the historical proof this sequence is real.
Hey, real quick, sorry to interrupt. Look, what you just watched is exactly why I created the Real Estate Crash Bundle. This project walks you through exactly how to protect your position before the next wave hits. This bundle is at a huge discount right now, and I don't know how long I'm going to be keeping it at this price. So I'm going to throw the link down below, and now let's dive right back into the video.
It runs on a predictable timeline because it has run before. 1981, Reagan administration cuts 1 million people from food stamps in a single year. Same justification, same demographics, same mechanism. Soup kitchens overwhelmed within 90 days. Food bank demand doubled within 6 months. Grocery store closures followed in the highest exposure zip codes. Property value depression in those markets came next. The recovery came, but it came after the distress. The buyers who moved during the distress made the money. The buyers who waited for the recovery announcement paid market rate. That is the 1981 playbook. It is running now in the same sequence. Here is exactly what to watch and in what order. First, food bank capacity reports in your target markets. When food banks issue capacity warnings, the economic pressure is real, and the grocery closure data is 2 to 3 months behind it. Second, independent grocery store announcements in rural and semi-rural zip codes. Chains can absorb the revenue hit. Independent operators cannot. The independent closure is the signal. Third, local tax revenue data in affected counties. When sales tax revenue drops, it shows up in county budget reports within 1 to 2 quarters. Service cuts follow 1 quarter after that. Fourth, foreclosure filing data in those same zip codes. Adam publishes monthly. When foreclosure starts accelerate in a county that has already shown the grocery and tax revenue signals, the buying window is open. Fifth, your state legislature. Every state is deciding right now whether to raise taxes, cut services, or restrict eligibility to balance the cost shift. Those decisions directly affect property tax rates in every market in that state. Here is the middle-class homeowner version of this same playbook. You do not need to invest in distressed real estate to use this information. You need to know whether zip codes surrounding yours are entering this sequence. A grocery store closure 2 miles away affects your home's desirability. A property tax increase driven by the cost shift affects your monthly payment. A school budget cut driven by reduced local tax revenue affects your neighborhood's demand. This is not a story about people on food assistance. This is a story about economic infrastructure and what happens to property values when it degrades. The federal government moved the cost. The cost did not disappear. It is landing on your county, your grocery store, your tax bill, and your property value on a timeline that is already set. Someone's stress is always another's opportunity. The stress here is documented, geographic, and unfolding on a predictable schedule. Subscribe. Drop a comment with your market. We are tracking this state by state, and your local intelligence helps us help you. The link below is the Real Estate Crash Bundle. It maps the full economic cycle, where we are right now, and what to do at each stage before the pressure arrives. The federal government published the timeline when they passed the bill. Now you know what to do with it. The opportunity is in knowing the sequence before the auction listing appears. The sequence is already running. Share this with someone who owns real estate. The data in this video is worth more than most paid research reports, and it is free because you showed up.